Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a terrific Thursday because I certainly am. This is Furley Almonte, your host for Faces of Resilience. Every week, we always bring incredible stories of resilience to our audience so you can learn. You and I could learn from all of these stories that we're hearing because some way, somehow, we will find our own story in many of them. Today, I'm so thrilled to actually have a host, not host, a guest who is actually really quite phenomenal because she's a master holistic healer and she has so many different fusions of modalities that she uses to coach people and to also heal people. I actually would like to read a little bit of her background. Let me just find it because it's quite impressive. My guest is actually in Canada, right? And I'm telling you, you will be energetically drawn to her because just full of vibrant, pure energy. Um, Her name is Robyn McTague. She is a published author, a prolific writer and speaker, and the creator of A Life of Choice coaching. She has overcome breast cancer, hepatitis C, and other challenges. Talk about resilience, right? Trained in a multitude of disciplines, including the sciences and metaphysics. Her areas of expertise include relationships, psychology, meditation, motivation, and conflict resolution. Oh my gosh, all the areas of our lives will be touched today. Due to Robyn's experiences, she has a wealth of understanding and knowledge to assist others in a safe, gentle, compassionate, and practical ways. When you learn to form a healthy relationship with yourself, you attract healthy relationships as well that you want to experience in your life and create a more successful lifestyle to affect in many areas of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so pleased to introduce to you my new friend, Robyn McTague. Hi, Robyn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I just love your energy too.
Like energy. They said before, like polar, was that opposites attract? But it has been redefined now because you attract what you are, not what you want. So when we manifest ourselves in a very positive way, we attract people just like you, so incredibly brilliant in what you do. So, first of all, this is about the phases of resilience. So, before you get to share about the awesome things that you're doing in your coaching world, I'd love to know um, a little bit more about Robyn. What is your story of resilience, Robyn?
Yes, lots of resilience. I moved around a lot as a kid, and there was abuse in a bunch of different ways. My dad was an alcoholic and abuser, sexual, physical, emotional. My mom was mentally ill and attempted suicide many times.
Oh my
The
God.
first time I remember, I was about 4 years old. And so I really didn't have any stability in my life. And so I was constantly looking for how do I get to feel supported. And so got really withdrawn and really shy and didn't know where to look for that. And then another time my mom attempted suicide, I was about 6. And so she went into hospital for a year and had to be away from me. And so I lived with my cousins, and that was really challenging for other reasons. So I often felt like the outsider and really wanted family. It was really important to me. And if anyone knows numerology, I'm a 6, so it's all about family and relationships. And so that's something that I really was seeking in my life. And I had a really good experience as a foster kid. A lot of kids didn't. But for me, I was going into grade 11 and my dad was killed, and it was a
Oh,
violent death. And he attracted that, and it was difficult because people thought I was really affected, but I was so numbed out that I was kind of glad because I knew I wouldn't be abused again. And then I felt guilty for feeling that, and it's like, why don't I feel any sadness because it got so buried? And so I had a really good experience with this family. I really connected with my foster mom. And it's really interesting because we're coming up to her death tomorrow. And she was 3 weeks shy of 100.
Oh, wow.
And so she died on my birthday, which is October 2nd at 2:10, which is my birthday reversed.
Hmm.
So
Wow, a lot
soon,
about numbers. Like now you got me so interested in this numerology things. Like, okay, all right. Oh my God, that's okay. And then, so I'm sorry to hear about your losses. My goodness. And
so yeah, so the big shift for me was the breast cancer because I was doing things for everyone else. I was working full time, doing union work on the side. I was on the Strata Council, but where was me, right? I looked healthy. I was running every day. I was eating well. I was thin, which I thought was being healthy. But I had so much stress and really didn't take any time for myself because I didn't learn that nurturing. And then when we learn about energy, we learn that the breaths are about nurturing. So that was my lesson, was to learn how to nurture myself.
how old were you when you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
44.
Did it come out as a routine exam, or did you feel something that prompted you to go for a checkup?
I had no symptoms whatsoever. It was what they thought was calcification on the mammogram. And here in Canada, we start mammograms at age 40. I know that there's lots of controversy and some don't start till 50. But for me, I think it's really important because there was no history that I knew of. I mean, it's different with immigrant parents. We don't really know the cause of death because those kind of tests and things weren't really done. So it's hard to know about that. And so we just kept checking. My doctor said, okay, let's do it sooner. And then finally they did a needle biopsy and then found the cancer cells.
Mm.
And
Did you
so
have to
for
go
me,
through? Did you have to go through? I don't know in Canada what's your protocol when it comes to treating breast cancer. Did you have to go through chemo, radiation, something like that? And who was with you through it all?
so yeah, so what happened for me was it was kind of either full mastectomy or partial with radiation. So I chose to go with the partial. And first, the margins weren't clear. So I had to go in for a second surgery within the same month and then had the radiation, 16 treatments of that. And then tamoxifen, which is kind of a preventative drug, but it gives you the menopausal symptoms chemically. So it's very similar to chemo in that sense. And I found that was really challenging. And after 2 years, I said, no more of this because it can cause other cancers. And it's like, why am I doing this to do that? And I choose not to live in fear anymore.
Are you okay now?
I'm good now. And so 20 years this month, anniversary.
Oh wow. See that that brings a lot of hope to so many people, because there used to be a time when you were diagnosed with breast cancer and the prognosis is never really good. But nowadays, with all of the medical advances and technology, we are able to manage breast cancer so much better. And I'm very thrilled that you're healthy now. I have a question though. You had said that your father passed and your mother attempted suicide, and she went to the hospital or any kind of institution. So you stayed with your cousins, but how much longer did your mom ever come back to claim you?
She did. And it's interesting because this is one of the stories I tell about my first understanding of that kind of metaphysical world. So I was going to school. It was a one-room country schoolhouse. So we had all the grades together with one teacher. And we had an art project. And I loved doing
Interesting.
art.
Like I had to stop for a moment. All the grades together in one teacher. So you are like, how were you separated? How come you were not confused? Because that might be so confusing. Like they're teaching something so advanced, while some of the people that are still beginning may be looking intimidated and petrified. So I was gonna say I could not conceptualize how it would look in my brain. So how was it like?
It was really fun because we had such community. It was such a small community. And I mean, it wasn't a big school. So, but we were all together in one room. And, the teacher would say, okay, do this lesson, and would go off and do it while she was teaching something else. And
Okay.
yeah, it was interesting now that you say that. but it's just normal for
Because
me.
I could not fathom that right now. Because even with virtual, you kind of keep everything separate. But anyway, going back to what we were saying, so your mom, you said that was your first brush with metaphysics because your mom came back to claim you, and
Yeah, so what happened was I came to school and we were supposed to be doing the art project in the afternoon, and I kept insisting that I needed to do it in the morning. I didn't know why, and I couldn't explain it. And being a shy kid, it was really out of character for me to be so insistent that I needed to do it. And I came back at lunchtime, and there was my mom to take me back.
wow, how did that make you feel? Like how long, for how long did you not see your mom before she resurfaced in your life?
A year.
How did you feel when you saw your mom then?
I was happy because I didn't know if I was going to see her again, and to see her and to have that connection again was really important.
So did you stay with her after that?
Yeah, and we moved around a lot. We lived with other families. And again, so I kind of felt like that outsider because I really wasn't part of their family. And sometimes there'd be jealousy and from both ends, both me as a kid and the other kids, right? Because here she is taking care of them. And I'm like, hello, what are you doing for me? I'm feeling really like she's not taking care of me.
My goodness, there's so many layers of you that I'm just listening to you talk about the different adversities you've been through from such a tender age, and so serious. The gravity of what you've been through it's quite too much actually for a child. And so so walk me through your healing from learning all of these incredible modalities that you're now doing to help others. So talk to me a little bit about your career, maybe can you just give me a concise version of it, and then so we can talk about how you help others heal from whatever they're going through.
Yeah, so the turning point was the breast cancer. So I spent 6 months on my sofa just going really deep. And this was kind of the catalyst to let all the emotions out. And it was interesting because I had felt like if I go there, how am I ever going to get out? And I think that's what I really like to tell people. It's like, we can go there. We can get through to the other side. There is hope. But for me, it was like watching movies that were sad about suicide and stuff to let those feelings out so I could really tap into them. Going to the fear, going to all these different places and really looking at those emotions and feeling them, because that's where our power is, and when we can feel our feelings. And then I was attempting to come back to the corporate world, and it didn't really fit anymore. But at the same time, it was
What
like,
was your
I need
career
to
in the
do.
corporate world? What was your
I,
career in the
I worked for a safety company that dealt with people who were injured on the job. So I did everything from case management
Mm.
to business practices and rules to project management to training to union work to
Okay.
many, many different
So you
things.
were not always an entrepreneur and a business owner. Yeah.
No, for
That is
me, I
something that
needed.
I want to ask you first, because that was very interesting that you said about you actually watch sad movies about people committing suicide, or like sad movies to actually awaken feelings in you so you can confront them, to awaken them so you can begin to acknowledge them. Is that a method that is usually used for people who because earlier part of the show you were talking about how you felt numb, and so from being numb you actually awakened emotions, and is that part of someone's process to healing?
Not that I'm aware of. I used it for myself. And for me, with clients, they need to feel safe enough first. Always start with safety. That's number one. So, making sure that they have processes in place to be able to deal with things as they come up. So, there needs to be things in place to feel like they have the safety, because we can disconnect. So, we need to be careful because there's a place of what is called disassociation in psychology terms. So we're here, and then on the severe end is when we kind of check out and can go into a psychological place where we're not connected anymore. So each person is individual, and we're each unique. What we have received, how we see the world. So all of that is really important. So I would really recommend people not just go out and do that, right? It's like have those systems in place first and the support that you need.
And then talk to me about the different modalities that you use, because you are one of the most fascinating people I've met in the healing world, because you use so many different sciences. And how do I even like healing? Like, is that a science? Is it an art? Oh, I'm not exactly sure how to refer to it.
Yeah, and that's why I came up with Master Holistic Healer, because I'm not really a coach, I'm not really a counselor. It's like we have to take care of ourselves always, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So the big shift for me was when I was going back to work, it was like, how could I be around these stressed out people again? Because I'd been living in silence and this very quiet place where I went very internal. So I learned about a system through the training in power where I got the grounding and the shielding so I could feel safe around people. And so that's the metaphysical course I teach. I also trained in some other modalities, such as thought field therapy. I trained with Roger Callahan. He's the original person who did the tapping. The some people know EFT, and he was a founder, so it was one of his students that created that. But I'd also done the psychology, the counseling certification, conflict resolution, critical incident stress, trauma with children. So all these different things, because as a kid, I was so curious. And it was like, how can people do what they do? And then when I brought in the motivational map and the Enneagram, those were kind of the real pieces for me that helps to get to our uniqueness. And so that's where I kind of start with people. So what motivates us? Who am I? How do I view the world? And what are those kind of blind spots and gifts of myself? So getting to that core essence of who we are, so we can express who we truly are without all those fears and challenges that we've been through.
Wow, those are very interesting. So many different. It's almost like I feel like there's a menu of services that you can provide. And you had mentioned earlier you're a six. What are those? What do those numbers mean?
In numerology and in the Enneagram, I am a six, which is interesting because six is a lot about responsibility. So my lesson in life was to learn to have correct responsibility and not take it all on. So, for example, with my mom, I was more of a parent than she was. So what I would find that would be reflected in my intimate relationships where I'd take on that kind of teacher or parent role because that was just natural to me. So I had to learn that, no, I can't take responsibility for everything. That's what got me sick in the first place. And it's also about family. And with the Enneagram, it's that fear. So looking at what is it in the environment, what can go wrong. And then when I do my talk, I talk about the irony of working for a safety organization for over 30 years because I needed that to feel safe enough to start to bring myself forward. And then over time, as I got more confident, I didn't need all the bureaucracy and all the rules because then I could be freer into who I was.
It's so interesting because I'm listening to you and I'm hearing a lot of like different things, like how you were able to shift everything from your childhood and just turn everything around, how you were able to correlate every single thing. And just now you just had mentioned that something had caused your sickness, and is it the stress, the feeling of isolation? What was it that you believe had caused your sickness?
I believe it was a combination. And if you're familiar with Louise Hay, she talks about different body parts. And then, of course, the breast is the nurturing. And it's also about putting ourselves first. And that's actually one of the big pieces of the level 1 course that I teach. And it's all about putting ourselves first because it's like the oxygen mask, right? If we don't take care of ourselves, how do we take care of anyone else? So I'm no good to anyone else if I'm not here to do it.
exactly. How many numbers are there? You said you're a six. Up to how high do they go?
Nine. So it's
Okay.
like 1 to 9. And then so if there's a double digit, then we just add those together.
Oh, I see. It's really quite interesting. Like how do you angiogram? What's how did you call it? What kind of ang angiogram? Am I saying it? it
Enneagram.
was that
Enneagram.
Annuogram? I said I know. I said I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Annuogram. Very interesting. So tell us a little bit more about the annuogram because that sound I've never heard that word before, nor have I heard about that modality. Was that unique to you?
No, it's actually a system that's been around for about 4,000 years. And
Seriously?
originally, when the monks learned their type, they only learned their own type. And so it was seen as a transformational path for spirituality. And then back in the 60s, the psychological component was brought into it as well. So we can have that path to see how do I view the world? What do I pay attention to? And see that this is just simply an ego defense mechanism that helps to keep me safe, keeps me in my comfort zone. So, how do I work through that to get to that core essence of my gifting, my spiritual part of who I am, and fill in that longing for something that I thought was missing in my life? So, we come in and we feel that there's this gap, and learning that we can have that in this lifetime and in your self so that you can have that ability to be truly who you are. And there's other personality systems out there, but this is the only one that I've found that really truly gives you a transformational path to that full growth of who you are. And so one of the techniques I use is shadow work. So places where we haven't wanted to look at. So for example, I don't want to feel jealous. So I'm going to put that into the darkness. I don't want to look at it. It becomes shadow. But then from the unconscious, we do self-sabotage or we do things that we don't know why. And it's because of that shadow part that we're not acknowledging. So we bring it into the light and then we do an integration so that there's a dialogue and it's not running the show in the unconscious. So we're aware of what's going on for us.
So, what type of client or patient? How do you call it, client or patient? Because
Client.
yeah, client. Because it seemed like it also seemed like because the healing part. Okay, what type of client are most uh, are best fit for what you do? Describe to me the type of client, so that they can identify themselves.
Often it's a place of transition for people or a place of knowing there's more in their life, but they're not sure what that is. And I find often there can be that place of really wanting to accomplish in the world, but it's like, okay, things are not really feeling good. I'm not feeling authentic. There's something missing. So, what is that? And we're often taught to look outside of ourselves for that. We've got the day planners, we've got this technique and that technique, but it's all about learning about who we are and what's important to us. And then when we're in alignment with who we are, then we can be our best version. So often it can be, I find a lot of entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of shifts there because they're not sure how to build those relationships, or they're doing the transition, or it could be, how do I put myself first? How do I get myself out there? How do I be confident in who I am, whether it's in a personal relationship or a business relationship? Because I think most people, we think about compartmentalizing those places, and we need to have that integration because that's the only place that we can be truly authentic.
Robin, there's, many of us actually, like so many millions of people right now because of pandemic are going through transitions, career, oftentimes relationships as well. So let's be more specific. For example, somebody who has lost their jobs and suddenly feels rejected, dispensable, and lost. What would you say to them? Give us three tips because so many people are going to learn from this. Three tips to get them getting out of their funk, from feeling self-pity into feeling more empowered.
So, number one is learning that we're not our job, we're not the external environment. And that is a huge loss. So, allowing the grief, and there's so much grief out there in the world anyway. So many of us tap into those feelings and aren't really sure what they are. So, check in with yourself. Am I feeling grief? Is it my grief? Is it someone else's? So, and when grief comes up, often past grief that you haven't resolved will come up. So that's number one. Number two is be kind and compassionate to yourself. I find that compassion sometimes is so difficult for people, but if we start with kindness or thinking about like a baby or a baby animal, something that kind of gives us that place of seeing how vulnerable it is and realizing that they need that comfort, that kindness, compassion for where they are. And with the kindness, then we can build into compassion, because often we can't find it for ourselves first. We need to find it a bit externally. And it's really wavelength. Everything is energy in the world. So when we can tap into that, then we can tap into that, start to do that for ourselves. And the best wavelength to tap into is gratitude. So for whatever you have, and it can be as simple as I can hear, I can see. And so that shifts our vibration. So often we get to that lower vibration, and dancing, singing, something to connect ourselves to our body, because most people live outside their body. And we have head, heart, body. And for a lot of people, it's like, how do I get into my body center? So find something that works for you, whether it's exercise. Like for myself with anger, I find a lot of times if I go out for a really fast walk or really feel like I'm doing something in my body, it really helps me to release that energy.
Yeah, I love your tips. First of all, I thought it was really very powerful when you said your title is not you, because your job, people identify so much about their job title that they feel that they've lost their identity once they lose that job. And then I love also how you said, be kind and compassionate to yourself. And I also love how you can release like the music and the dance, and like the laughter that you can surround yourself with, to just basically give relief to yourself. That is beautiful. You've written a book. What is the book all about?
Well, I've been in 5 books so far.
Okay, all
And
right. Tell me your favorite.
let's see which one. There's one where I tell my story about the cancer, and that's called Your Shift Matters. And I do have that chapter as a giveaway on the website if anyone's interested in that.
Okay,
And
please share. Okay, for anyone out there who'd like to read the chapter of Robyn McTague, okay, now listen carefully. What's the website, Robyn?
alifeofchoice.ca. So that's the thing to remember. I'm in Canada, so it's .ca instead of .com.
Yes, actually, I even had to double check myself when I was sending you an email. Oh, I said, because she's in Canada, a lifeofchoice.ca. So, do you have like a Facebook group, a Facebook page that they could follow, LinkedIn perhaps, where they could learn more about you, to hire you as a speaker or as a coach?
On
Or,
Facebook, yeah, the Facebook business page is Master Holistic Healer. So it's my name, Master Holistic Healer.
that's beautiful. Master Holistic Healer. Well, before we close, any last words that you would like to share with the audience on resilience?
Remember past times where you got through something, and know that you can tap into that ability. So when you're feeling hopeless, helpless, remember that's just the old story about being a victim, and you can be into a place where you are fully who you are in your power. So it just means that you need to tap into your power to get through that.
I love that, tapping into your resilience power. I love that you had mentioned that, because, you know, a few times recently I felt like a little. Say, for example, I was going through a couple of challenges, and I said to myself, I've been through worse. And I survived so beautifully. I said, like, I got it, I got it. And then I was able to get out of that funk very easily. But that's a lovely reminder. So remember the times that you were able to overcome challenges in your life because you got it, right? So, well, Robyn, thank you so very much for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your light. I can feel how heartfelt you are. I hope that people will claim, first of all, and learn more about you by reading your chapter, reach out to you for, for coaching, healing, whatever it may be, because you come from a wealth of wisdom and experience. And I love the fact that you'll be able to help people from that standpoint, because it's not all about textbook. It's all about what you have learned in the process and how you have even empowered yourself to rise above it all and live this gorgeous, resilient life. And so, thank you so much for sharing your genius. I hope that we continue to stay in touch, and I would love to bring you back again when you have something new and incredible, because it seemed to me like you keep adding a new dimension to your already brilliant world. So,
And
thank you
thank you
so.
so much for doing this. I really appreciate you and bringing this message to people.
You're welcome, Robyn. Well, there goes again another fabulous and life transforming episode of Faces of Resilience. Until next week, this is your host, Furley Almonte, saying to you, always live in love and in gratitude. Take care now. Bye bye.